Well, Scarbs, let's look then at McLaren's big weekend. They've got the IndyCar, obviously at the Indy 500, Fernando qualifying 5th, and we've got Jenson Button standing in for Fernando at Monaco alongside Stoffel Van Dorn, with updates coming. And we have a 3D now, not only of the Formula One McLaren, but comparing that with the IndyCar. Talk us through it.
Okay, we could sort of just stop here. I mean, the first thing you can tell is that they're very different sizes and shapes. The McLaren F1 car is much longer in the wheelbase.
You really get a feel for the length of a Formula One car.
This is it. I mean, I think traditionally we've always remembered, as you can see from the car behind us, Indy cars are very long, very big, very heavy.
Yeah.
But the balance has changed now. So Formula One cars are about the same weight. They're much longer. But the thing that's different between them is that you'll notice that although we've got a longer wheelbase, that the Indy car has a much longer nose. Obviously, Indy cars then will hit a very hard wall at very high speed. So the frontal impact structure is much larger on the car, but overall the car is much shorter. Equally, you see the general shape of the side pods. The McLaren has a typical F1 Coke bottle shape where the bodywork slims in between the rear wheels. And the Dallara-made IndyCar has very much an out-swept side pod, quite old-fashioned in Formula One sort of aerodynamic terms, but very reminiscent of the Dallara-made Formula E car as well. This is partly to do with preventing wheel-to-wheel contact, and again, that's why you have the difference with the fenders behind the rear tyres.
Just going down to the McLaren F1 car, where are we at now in terms of size zero rear? How does it compare with other cars like the Toro Rosso, for example?
I think everyone's kind of centred on something not quite as extreme as we saw with McLaren and Honda in year one, but not as big as I think everyone has learnt from that concept. But McLaren have gone away from that a little bit now and slimmed the roll hoop area back from the car. We now start to spin the cars around. You can start to look at the frontal aero and if we kind of just sort of stop about there. You can see that this is an IndyCar set up for ovals, so you don't need much downforce. You want to be running at that 230 miles an hour. You want low drag, don't need downforce, so the wing is trimmed out to almost nothing. The wing can be adjusted. There's two little adjusters inside the nose. You can actually adjust the wing independently left and right to very tiny margins, whereas Formula One car always needs lots of downforce, even on the fastest of tracks, and you see this massively complex wing. Again, you can see that the frontal crash structure there is much shorter as well in comparison to the IndyCar. Then as we sort of swing around, you can see Formula One tyres as well now are much larger than the IndyCars are running, although the IndyCars do run a larger diameter wheel inside the tyre. Side pods, again, this is all sort of to do with the aerodynamics and the cooling. The IndyCar travelling constantly at very high speed, it's easy to get air into the radiator. So for oval races, you'll see that they blank off the side pod inlet, very small amount of air gets in, but because of the speed, you get plenty of cooling. F1 cars run much slower, and you need the cooling when you're running in the slower corners, so you have a much larger side pod inlet. All of the aero add-ons and the bodywork add-ons around the front of the McLaren F1 car are for aerodynamic purposes. On the Indy car, the fin you see outboard there behind the front wheel, again, is to try and prevent wheel-to-wheel contact. Obviously, over 200 miles an hour, any contact between the cars, particularly tyre to bodywork or tyre to tyre, would be catastrophic. So it's important for these cars to trim back.
Different mirror positions too. IndyCar level with the steering wheel, Formula One further back, or not? Or is that an optical illusion?
No, that probably is right. Formula One teams move the mirrors around. McLaren, interestingly, have probably one of the highest and sort of furthest back mirror positions of most of the other teams. Everyone else plays with it a little bit. They've all got different ideas what they want to do.
And Fernando running the same helmet as he does in Formula One, in Indy.
Yes.
Bell helmet, the only difference being that there's a lip you're allowed to have in Formula One, you're not allowed to have in Indy.
You can't have the spoiler on the back of the helmet in IndyCar. Here we see, obviously, refueling's gone from Formula One. In IndyCar, it's blanked off here, but they will come in and refuel through the race. Obviously, F1 cars, it's just tyre changes through the race. Even the cameras over the top of the roll hoop, different. You have the moving ones in IndyCar, which are fantastic. I think it's time they turned up in Formula One as well, so you can pan around as the cars are overtaking and lapping. Swinging towards the back, obviously the power units are very different. Honda F1 engine, it's 900 plus horsepower with the energy recovery. Clearly not the case with the IndyCar engine, which is just a twin turbo. And then at the rear, again, just the sheer level of complexity of the aero is apparent on the Formula One car. Formula One cars have relatively small diffusers, underbody shaped tunnels. The IndyCar is designed to have a much longer tunnel. Most of its downforce comes from underneath the car, so a lot of the aero is designed to work that area. With the Formula One car, as much as the diffuser is important, they do shape a lot of the upper body work to help that diffuser work and to play about. And again, just the rear wing levels. McLaren has this deep wing, as deep as the regulations allow it, and the coat hanger shaped T-wing. Whereas again on the Indy cars we see that the rear wing is trimmed right out, just one element. And we saw in qualifying the little extra wing that sits over the rear tyre fenders, they were running the outboard one removed just to take that little bit of extra drag off the car, because on an Indy car the setup is very asymmetric in order to get the loads right across the chassis. So they're actually taking little bits off in quality just to get that last little bit of top speed and sacrifice a little bit of balance, a little bit of tyre control.
Well, an excellent performance from Fernando to get in to the car, to get into the team, get a feel for what it's all about. He's right there, he's on the pace. It is a question of strategy now, really. It's just how he manages the race and how the cards fall for him.